One more to you, because like you said to me earlier, you were involved back in your Jakarta years with rallying. Social media is definitely a magical tool, I think we all agree, when it comes to creating a buzz, spreading an opinion, or testing an idea. And we found that to be very efficient in the 2009 elections. However, would you agree that it does not do the job when it comes to calls for action? In the sense that if you want people to rally, it's not going to work if you just post on your social network, rally at 6 in whatever square, and that for that specific need, you actually need real networks made up of real people that you know. So your friends, your acquaintances, physical friends versus virtual friends. Would you agree with that, or would you have another take on that based on your experience?
What is true is that I agree with what Alex said recently. I mean, I don't think that we have been seeing Twitter or Facebook revolutions. But what is interesting, if you look in Tunisia, because I've been there many times, in Tunisia, just 2 months before the beginning of the revolution, in fact, there were a very strong increasing of the people registered on Twitter and Facebook. And why? Just because it was the time of the release of the Tunisia leaks by WikiLeaks. What it means that during 2 months before the revelations, the citizens connecting on social media just to speak about the diplomatic cables from the States, because they were speaking about the Ben Ali regime. So it means that probably just to mature the discussions that began in the minds, the revolutions, the social media, they had really a very big and very important role. That's the first thing. And the second thing is mobilization. As people say, I mean, authoritarian regime, they face thousands of opponents. But the problem for these opponents is it's just to be organized, to just go in the streets in the same time. And social media is a way to organize, to mobilize. As I told you, even before the social media in 1998 in Indonesia, the use of the mails was a very good mean just to be sure for the students not to be 10 people in the streets. Because if you are 10 people, the police, they will just caught you. If you are 10,000, they will not be able to do that. So the power of synchronization and on mobilizations through the social media is absolutely key. But still, a revolutions, you make it on the streets.
I'll go to Ali Cross now. Like you said yourself, social media did not make the revolutions by itself, and you know, Wael in Egypt was not the only person who actually got Mubarak out of power. What really did it, and it was the same back in 2005 in Beirut Spring, was the people. It's people that make a revolution. And I always like to remind everyone that in 2005 we did not have Facebook, and we did not have Twitter. We had our mobile phones, and that's what we used. In today's world, and we have an election campaign coming up in a few months, and I'm sure others around the world have it too, what would you say would be the most efficient way to use, in Lebanon, just for you to know, many more people are on Facebook than there are on Twitter. I know it's not the same as a worldwide trend, but it is the case in Lebanon. What would you say is the most efficient way to use, let's Facebook or Twitter, during social campaigning and leading up to election day?
Sure. So Barack Obama is president of the United States in part because of social media. So, you know, these tools can be very powerful in an electoral context. The key is you have to do 3 things. You have to inform, you have to inspire, and this is the most important thing. The third thing you have to do is you have to incite to action. If you just put something there and get somebody to click like, then you're not doing anything. But if you inform, you inspire, and then you create a simple transaction, learning where to vote, learning how to donate, learning how to volunteer, and you do so seamlessly, do so using some of the kind of brilliant design that Electoral does, then it can be very powerful. Now, in 2012, the presidential election that just took place, Mitt Romney had a lot more money than Barack Obama did to run. Mitt Romney had all of these billionaires putting all kinds of money in his presidential campaign. And he went and he bought up all kinds of TV ads. it was like, we called it black rain. There was all of these TV ads in the United States against Obama and for Romney. Now, Obama had some money of his own, and he also did some TV ads. But one thing that he did, which I think can be applicable anywhere, is part of what he did is he used the granular information, the very specific information you're able to get about people on social media, to be able to have more local and more targeted conversations with people on social media and do narrow-casted ads. So that instead of just having one ad and competing visions, if somebody was a farmer in Iowa and on Facebook, they would know that somebody was a farmer in Iowa on Facebook, and you were able to talk to that farmer in Iowa about issues that farmers in Iowa care about. So you're able to have a more local discussion. In terms of the differences between Twitter and Facebook, actually the trend in Lebanon is the same as the trend globally. There are about 1 billion users of Facebook globally, and I think that there are about 200 million users of Twitter globally. Twitter tends to get a little bit more attention in settings like this because it tends to be used more as an information network and among the elites. The Facebook tends to be used more by the masses. So in Lebanon, a country of 4 million people, there are 1.4 million Facebook accounts. 1.4 million Facebook accounts in a country of 4 million people. And so we might tend to use Twitter more because that's what's used more in academic circles, political circles, and journalistic circles. But if part of what you're trying to do is reach the masses, then you go to where the numbers are, and that oftentimes is on Facebook. And it's a good place to have a discussion. And what I tell people is, and what I tell politicians is, remember, you only have one mouth, but you have 2 ears. So don't just use social media as a place to push out a message, but use it as a place to listen and engage and have a discussion.
Thank you. We'll remember that.
I'll send you a bill.
or you come.
It'll be smaller than Ellie's bill, though.
I'm sure you'll be kind and generous. We're a small country, remember. We have no oil, no gas. But before we go to Q&A, I'd just like to ask very, very quickly, but literally, not Eddie, because I can ask him this time and time again, but the rest of you, if you were in charge of next year's political campaign, for one camp, let's not go into partisanship here, and if you had one advice regarding social media, very, very quickly, what would it be? Let's take it from starting from.
I will say that now, in fact, you should not consider separatively new media and old media. What we have seen in France, I was in charge of the net campaign for the presidential election, is really the fact that people are watching TV and are debating on Twitter. So there is new opposition. There is that's finished now, the way you can consider that you have 2 fields of campaigns, the new media and the old media. In fact, you have the 2 old and new media at the same time. You look and you watch TV, and you comment on Twitter. And the second thing is that, I don't know here, but when I check in on Foursquare in Lebanon, I think that really, it begins to be really very serious. So I will say that a political campaign is something very related to a territory. So I will say that the use of a Foursquare or any applications of geolocalization should be really something very innovative in the campaign in the future.
Thank you. Alec?
I'd say do narrow-casted messaging on Facebook.
Thanks. Eddie, do you want something to say?
Yeah, I think we should be honest and as well multi-segmented. Yani, go straight into people's needs, but be honest about it.
Thank you. Ambassador?
As you say, this will be the first smartphone election in Lebanon, and that's extraordinarily powerful. But people have been given a superpower, but you can use it for good or bad, like any superpower. What I would love to see a political campaign here do is engage people in a conversation through social media on what Lebanon can be like in the year 2020. What's the light at the end of the tunnel? We're going through a tunnel now. It's pretty dark, but what's the light at the end of it? I think if you could capture that, you'd have a good chance.
Thank you.
Ich glaube, dass zentral ist, dass wir Twitter und Facebook nutzen, um Dialoge herzustellen, um Interaktionen zu machen, um Bürger zu beteiligen und Bürger zu fragen, um mehr Partizipation und Transparenz zu ermöglichen. Und wer das glaubhaft und ehrlich tut, der hat eine gute Chance zu gewinnen. Und in Deutschland schaffen es Parteien, über Twitter und Facebook massiv zu mobilisieren, ohne dass wir es vorher nicht möglich gewesen.
I think it's important to mobilize people and to engage them in participation, in actual citizen participation via social media, and to use social media as a tool of dialogue and not as a tool to just give messages and campaigns, also to interact with the public and to get people's input and to use it and to learn from it. And this is how parties in Germany can actually mobilize a lot of people in political campaigns, and that would be my advice for the upcoming election.
Thank you. I'll let you know if we win. We're going to start the Q&A now. Our microphones going around the room.
I just want to thank you, Atma, and your honorable guest. Mainly, I have two questions. First, could we use the social media as the way of communication between citizens and the government? And is there any official frame for that? And the second question is, should we allow to go through social media gates or anything during work time in private sector or in public sector? Is it good to do that, to go inside the free and we say anytime you could go through the sites and work on it during work time? Thank you.
Twitterful.com.
Shall we answer one and then we move on to the next, or do you want to take, how would it work best?
About government.
Please.
I would say that we, not only do we allow our diplomats to access Facebook and Twitter at work, but we almost insist on it. Because that's how people do their jobs now. You cannot just be a government official and talk to other people in suits and ties with a mahogany table sipping coffee. You have to continue to do that, but you also now have to be able to communicate with the people that you work for. And we work for, I believe we should be working for our citizens. And since our citizens are all on these social networking services and this is how they communicate, that's how we do it. So for us, it's been a big shift. And we've just done it in the last 2 or 3 years. But we're trying to go not just from meetings between elites, but trying to get our diplomats to increasingly use social networking services as a way of communicating with larger publics. So for us, it's been very good. For us, it's worked quite well. It can be a little messy, but it's better for things to be a little bit messy and you be closer to the people that you're serving than for you to just be meeting between elites. So that's been our approach.
Thank you. How about the Great Britain?
Absolutely reinforce that. This isn't something you do in your spare time. This is a core part of our jobs now. I'd say find the person in your office who is on Twitter and Facebook in the corner of the room and promote them, because they should be running the office. It is absolutely core activity, and it's not just to be confined to social time or home time.
National dialogue, if anything.
It would be cool. There was a gentleman there. Sorry, he was up first. If you can introduce yourself and ask a question.
Thank you very much. So before asking my question, this is a free speech conference, and I actually raised my hand first. And I don't think we can call this a free speech conference if we actually give the microphone to authority figures first, even though I raised my hand first. Thank you very much.
Michael, my fault, entirely.
So that out of the way, there's a very pertinent issue regarding the Middle East that I feel wasn't particularly discussed, and I would like to see more discussion on that before the day is over, which is internet censorship and surveillance in the Middle East. Now, I know we have Mr. Ross here, and I'd like to bring to the attention of the room that there are companies such as Blue Coat in the United States that provide surveillance technology to the Syrian regime, as well to other regimes in the Middle East, including the Egyptian regime that has recently been replaced. So these technologies are allowing governments to monitor citizens, to break into their computers, including legitimate activists. They're also allowing the hacking of Facebook accounts, of Twitter accounts, and I think that's completely unacceptable. aside from that, I don't want to put Mr. Ross under the limelight because he doesn't deserve to be. There's other people I'd like to hear some valuable contributions from regarding what we're going to do to make it so that the atmosphere of internet censorship and surveillance doesn't seep into Beirut, because I care about Beirut and I don't think we should allow this to happen here as it's been happening in close regions. Thank you.
First of all, I apologize. It's my fault. It's not the minister's fault, actually. But then I really don't know how to answer that question, so I'll leave it to Alex to start with, because he's under attack.
So let me respond first to the thing about Blue Coat. So it is illegal. Before the revolution, the United States already had sanctions on Assad, strong sanctions. So the fact that the Blue Coat technology made its way into Syria, it was not sold to Syrians. It was sold to a country from the United Arab Emirates, which Blue Coat apparently thought was a sale to the United Arab Emirates. The company in the United Arab Emirates then resold it to Syria. So Blue Coat came forward to our own, as I understand it, to our own law enforcement agencies and said, hey, it appears our stuff is being used in Syria, even though we have sanctions against the Syrian regime. So just as a technical matter, since you brought that up, if you sell something to somebody and it ends up in a box in their country and the box ends up in another country, there's only so much that we can do in Washington. But what we do have is we have the strongest sanctions and export controls in the world against the Syrian regime. The second thing that I would point out that we do is, since I've been in my role, we've spent $90 million on technology tools, the purpose of which is to help people in countries like Syria evade government censorship and be able to communicate freely on the web. So I understand you have a hackerspace in Beirut, is that right? So the hackerspace that you have here in Beirut, whether you know it or not, the technologies that you and your friends are using have probably been supported in part by the $90 million that my government has spent to keep you guys safe on the internet. So I'll just close by saying you're welcome.
Benoit wanted to add something on that point.
I think really it's a very, very strong issue, so I really agree with you. And this kind of technology of filtering the internet, they should be considered as a new weapons. And exactly as in the field of war, there are weapons that are forbidden. Probably in the future, there will be some treaties, and there are already some discussions about the fact that kind of technology should be really ruled or even forbidden.
Ambassador Fletcher also wanted to say something on the issue.
Just very briefly, especially in the context of what happened yesterday in Syria, I think it's important to say that while regimes can shut down the internet, regimes can ban the iPhone, iFreedom will always get through in the end. And I loved a tweet that circulated in Libya a year and a half ago. Someone said, if you build a wall around our internet, we'll build the internet around your wall.
Thank you. Gentleman here.
Okay. My name is Roland Abinajam. My question is to Mr. Ross also, because he had a great speech. And he said about that we cannot control everything in the open society, in social media, especially in Facebook. And he gave one example about YouTube, that we have like, I don't know how much number of hours per minute uploaded on YouTube. So this is correct, but basically, you know, we have like social media tools for monitoring and listening. You know, we have online social bakers, social eyes, several social media tools that you can monitor through keywords. For example, I want to search, everybody is talking about USA on all social media like Facebook or Twitter or blogs or forum or anything. So I can control, I can analyze all this data and can come up with a report about all the specific details. Those are social media tools existing online, and we can buy it for $50, $100, $200. So as you said, like $90 million spending for US government, for sure you have additional tools that can do much better than these tools. So how can you use these tools to monitor everything on social media and control everything, while you said previously you cannot control and you cannot monitor? Thank you.
I think that most social media analytical tools are very crude. I actually don't find them that helpful. And, you know, sitting in the office of the Secretary of State during revolutions and trying to analyze social media to better understand these revolutions, what I'll tell you is with all of our capabilities and with all of the relationships that we have and with I have with the people that run these companies, I find it very crude. Now, having said that, there is a lot of money right now going into the development of the next generation of analytical tools. So what I believe is that in about 18 months or 2 years, there will be very powerful analytical tools. Now, once there are, I believe, the next generation of powerful analytical tools, what I think that that does is it will increase understanding, but I do not think it will necessarily have a corresponding increase in control. Because just because you understand what is taking place there, I don't necessarily think that that means that a government official can now control it. In part because the reverse analytics are largely retrospective. But what I'll say is, if I quit my job tomorrow, and my goal was to become a billionaire as quickly as possible, I would do one of two things. I would either start a cybersecurity firm, or I would start a data analytics firm, a big data social media analytics firm. Because these are, as more people, as the internet becomes an increasingly conflict-ridden space, there's going to be more need for cybersecurity, and as more commercial activity and more communication takes place online, there's going to be a need for new data analytical tools because the ones today are not good enough.
I've been told I'm allowed one more question, so I can't remember if there was someone there before Amjad. Am I allowed two more? Two more. So let's take the gentleman there and then Amjad.
No, well, I'm passing for him.
Okay, so one more, that's it, we're done.
My question to Mr. Ross, since you're the American here. Is it true that the first time that the State Department heard about the Egyptian Revolution was on Al Jazeera?
Sorry, I don't think we all heard that. Is it true that?
The State Department heard about the Egyptian Revolution was on Al Jazeera.
I don't know that that's necessarily the first place that we heard about it. But what I will say is that Al Jazeera was an outstanding source of information during the revolution in Egypt. And if you walked through the halls of power in Washington and people had their TV sets on, there were a lot of TV sets turned to Al Jazeera. That's what I'll say.
Shall I wrap up?
Right?
Yeah.
You probably read that on Facebook.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
I think I'm just told that we have to wrap up at this point. Very, very quickly, I think if we just remember one thing from each one of you, for Edi Khouri it would be that it's not about the tool, it's about the message, the importance of the message and the importance of design in terms of architecture. If I go back to Ambassador Fletcher's words, I think that he said that the world has transformed and so have we. We have had to adapt to the word transformation. And that yes, it is risky to be online, but it is much more risky in today's world to be offline. If I go back to you, sir, I think what you're saying is no regulation whatsoever, if not you're out of the economic game even. So if we take as examples China or Iran, so it's all in. And I think we're pretty much saying the same thing here, but that it is at this point we cannot be offline, basically. So we have to find ways, and we have to trust people's reputational care to make sure that I will not wrap up what Alec Ross said, because I think that everyone wants to talk to Alec Ross, and we'll talk to Alec Ross. Thank you very much, all of you.